What food or drink sucks even if most people won't admit it? Any food that pretends to be another food, it's never good. I have friends that act like they can't tell the difference between rice and cauliflower rice, and I know it's make-believe. There is no way they can taste the difference. I'm like this with almost any substitute. Just call it what it is and roll with it because I'm skeptical of all of them at this point. I grow apples in our backyard in Wisconsin, and we have these 2 apple trees that grow ghost white apples. I believe they're the White Cloud variety, and Cortland's red ones. These are fresh off the tree. The white ones are already mature and I picked some to enjoy in my room. Here's an interesting apple fact for you. Every pip, seed, within an apple is genetically different from the tree it came from. Humans found out ways to clone the parent by grafting branches to ecother, but every apple seed inside the apple is each genetically different. So if you plant a Honeycrisp pip, it'll be an entirely different apple. You have to graft from a parent Honeycrisp tree to get another Honeycrisp tree. Nature's diversity in apples is amazing. New varieties of apples grow in nature here in Wisconsin, and the number of variety is astonishing. My nerd obsession and passion is nuclear weapons, but fruit has tons of interesting info too. And another fruit fact for you is this. The original citrus species was pomelo, citron, mandarin and papaya. All the lemons, limes, oranges, and others you see today are hybrids. Grapefruit is a hybrid too. I can't even understand why they are still at the supermarket, surrounded by Gala, Ambrosia, Fuji, Honeycrisp, any of which are a zillion times better, and yet they're still there, which means someone is still buying them. Who, and why? Maybe straight from the orchard. Even 30 years ago when your primary options were Red Delicious and Granny Smith, I hated Red Delicious and happily ate those sour Granny Smith since they had a better texture. I love that we have tons of options now and that many are still quite good after the whole shipping process when it's not locally in season. For people saying artificial cherry flavor reminds them of cough syrup, it's interesting how this is generational changes by decade. My wife hates artificial cherry got this reason, and I don't. But I hate artificial orange, citrus for this reason and she doesn't. Edited, yeah all are terrible lol. Edit too. So I asked my wife to make sure and her perspective was she hated cherry and cherry was her 80s flavor but she said grape was the 90s flavor and not orange like I thought as a 90s youth. This made me ask my mom and she said my stuff was orange flavored but also I always got the prescription meds from the hospital because of my asthma, not over the counter which was grape. Mom was an nurse so I'm going to believe it but do your own research lol. People in the comments saying root beer in other countries is super interesting. Natural means that a plant or animal created all of the chemicals. It's totally irrelevant. A molecule that I make in a lab is not somehow different than the same molecule made in a plant's lab. It's cells. Also, if I genetically engineer an algae or fungus that produces orange flavor compounds, I can advertise that as natural orange. So, it's really not something to pay attention to. It's marketing. Most flavoring out there comes from essential oils. That is my main expertise. The MLM Karens rubbing lavender oil on their heads to cure cancer are a tiny part of the global essential oil market. The flavor and fragrance industries consume almost all of the global production. Essential oils are farmed commodities just like corn or soy or anything else. Industrial raw materials. Grape flavor is Concord grapes, which we don't normally consume in America anymore, as we have red and white grapes. It is grape flavor, but not the kind you're used to. Similar with artificial banana flavor, an extinct kind, now only artificial. The flavor is of a breed that no longer exists. Grape flavor does exist in Concord grapes, but you need to hunt in specific stores to find that. Mostly because bananas are grown as monocultures, they're extremely susceptible to blight and pests. which happened to the gross Michael. A fungus that causes what's called Panama disease hit the big plantations and basically wiped out the bananas. It's now only able to be grown on tracts of land that the fungus never infected. Plantations switched to Cavendish because the Cavendish bananas were far more resistant to the fungus. The same fungus adapted and is starting to affect Cavendish bananas, and another fungus called black sigatoka is also hitting them. The Cavendish will likely disappear relatively soon as well. I have fond memories of Diamond Tap grape when I would get sick as a little kid. I'm a pharmacist now. I've actually lectured and taught pharmaceutical compounding, including flavoring. At the doctorate level, I managed to reproduce the flavor once like 7 yactoseconds ago, but now forget how exactly I did it lol. And now I've moved on to clinical work. Y'all ain't playing right. It says even if most people won't admit it, but then you are listing things that most people would agree is gross. SMH. But I have to throw this out there, because even though I cannot believe someone thought this was a good idea, the entire bag disappeared at our lake house this year, so everyone else but me seemed to like them. The new Oreos with Pop Rocks in them. WTF. And I didn't know until it was in my mouth. Just thought they were red, white and blue, for the Olympics. But normal flavored. I didn't expect fireworks in my mouth, and somehow it was worse that they weren't flavored. Number, just number. They need a much bigger warning label. As someone who finished the whole package in one night, I really got to agree with you. Now I'm a sob who loves Oreos and I try every new style I see, but those ones I will not buy again. The popping hampered my ability to taste the Oreo, and I didn't get any of the tasty Pop Rocks flavor, so to me it ruined both for no gain. I'm real glad they keep trying, though. I really enjoyed the salted caramel brownie recently. Yes, I would much rather only occasionally eat something as a treat than swap it for a healthier version that only just tastes enough like the original that people can convince themselves it's basically the same. Fat and salt and sugar are essential to so many flavors that cannot be replicated without them. Anything with stevia in it. I was doing keto and tried doing the stevia sweetener for the occasional treat. Yeah. Sure, things tasted sweet, but then there's this soapy artificial taste that I have never been able to get used to. Bleh, edit, holy crap. I guess I hit a nerve. Thanks for the awards. I don't know what they do. For what it's worth, all artificial sweeteners taste awful to me, but stevia is the worst of them all. I get headaches and an itchy tongue from some of the others like erythritol. I'm allergic and no one believes me. It is closely related to ragweed, which is a severe allergy for me. Last allergy test, the ragweed allergen was larger than a quarter. Every time I get just a sip or taste of stevia is enough for my throat to start to feel sore and weird. I'm seriously afraid of it becoming anaphylaxis. If you're eating stevia and your mouth goes numb and throat feels fuzzy, then stop eating it. You might have an allergy. You just validated me. Every fucking time I ingest stevia, I get a headache and weirdly muscle cramps in one area of my back. Last time I had it was at a potluck, and I had no idea it was in the cookies I ate. An hour later, I work at a natural foods grocery store and it's in freaking 3 out of 4 things. I swear, devil's weed. Here's what we did for our wedding cake. We got a regular size cake, a nice and light lemon cake, for cutting and pictures, also no fondant. It was good to eat too. Then we also ordered a bunch of minis, like tarts, different flavors of mini cheesecake, stuffed with chocolate. Everyone got something they like, and no fondant in sight. Vegan cheese. My girlfriend is vegan and it sucks like 90% of the time. We mostly just use some kind of substitute if we're sharing a meal. Edit. Now my GF wants to try all these suggestions and I have to continue to eat vegan cheese. Thanks a lot, guys. Figure out how to make the saturated fats. Proteins are okay, But all of those vegan things try to make the proteins, then use palm oil or coconut oil as the fat. If we're going to get saturated fats, don't use terrible tropical fats. Figure out how to grow beef fats on an algal mat at scale and rule the world. I actually have celiac disease and I eat gluten-free bread only a handful of times per year because it's so lousy. I was never a big bread person anyway, so it wasn't hard for me to give that up. Luckily there's pretty good substitutes for most other things, but gluten-free bread is not good, and if you eat it when you don't actually need to be gluten-free, you're nuts. Feel this to my core. Was diagnosed in 2000 and the bread was hot garbage back then. Drive yourself 30 minutes to your nearest weird health food store to buy a $7 loaf of rice sludge that turns to glue in your mouth and becomes unswallowable if you put peanut butter on it. So glad the food has improved so much in the last 21 years. That is one benefit to non-celiacs treating GF as a health craze. Good for the celiacs. Other than people not respecting genuine food intolerances, bad for the people treating it as a health craze because if they aren't gluten intolerant, it was working because of the lack of junk food, and that's not true anymore. A bit of science here. Gluten is what gives baked goods stretch, so like a stretchy, chewy baguette has a lot of gluten, but a crumbly biscuit or crispy cookie doesn't have much. In fact, regular biscuits are made in such a way to minimize gluten formation. You can get pretty decent gluten-free baked goods on the crumbly end on the spectrum, but bread is kind of the final frontier. Edit, yes, you still have to use a flour substitute if you want something to be completely gluten-free, but those subs are far more successful for crumbly treats. Pretty much this. It's all egg/dairy/gluten/nut/everything edible free. I hate it. There's a local place that makes fantastic potato bread though. It's mostly potato and tapioca flours, has eggs and milk in it too. It's somehow larger than regular sandwich bread too, which is basically unheard of. The guy keeps making noises about retiring and we won't let him lol. It was ruined in the 50s. Growers were paid based appearance, on how dark red the skin was, so they bred for that. They were additionally bred to have a thick skin, because it helped hide bruising and other blemishes in transportation. On the plus side, it's pretty much going extinct, replaced by the Gala and Fuji as the low-cost snacking apple. The original cultivar of the Red Delicious is now referred to as the Hawkeye. If you feel like taking a trip back in apple history. Edit, yeah, I know apples are not bread. Poor choice of words. I spoke to an apple farmer about Red Delicious apples. His words as he stared off into the September sunset. The Red Delicious really is an inferior apple. His words cut. Imagine testing so bad that a man whose livelihood once depended on you doesn't even like you. In other news, he highly recommends ambrosia apples. As he put it, they are a big, crunchy, super sweet apple that white girls at Starbucks would enjoy. U/Pocket713 said something that affects this. He or she brought up that they must have changed the recipe of SpaghettiOs in the past 20 years. For sure they changed the recipe for Chef Boyardee in that same amount of time. I tried a can of both modern Chef Boyardee, I don't remember which exact type, and the throwback version. Same type. Let me tell you, the throwback was fucking good, the modern was shit. The throwback had actual ingredients you could read. The modern was nothing but refined compounds and corn syrup, with a little meat or tomato. It's not nostalgia. Food companies fuck around, it's real. This is why I hate Pizza Hut. Sure, they still have some good stuff, but their 90s band pizza was so fucking good and the modern version is disappointing in comparison. The closest I've been able to get is Kenji's foolproof pan pizza, which I like better except that it requires actual work. If you get actual soft serve, it's actually ice cream that's frozen and mixed with air to get the pillowy, soft texture. They can control how much air goes into it as well, which gives it a more whipped cream taste versus a stronger chocolate or vanilla flavor. Personally, I like mine extra fluffy, but it also means you're paying for air instead of actual ice cream. I don't know what they put in Arby's ice cream, but if it does that, I'm wondering if it's actually like an oil base instead of a dairy base. Like whipped cream versus Cool Whip could also be a filler to make thinner, lower quality cream, like 2% milk, feel more like actual cream, like cellulose gel or something. A good indication of the quality of soft serve is if they call it ice cream or call it something else. For example, Chick-fil-A calls it ice cream because in order to be called ice cream, the USDA mandates ice cream shall contain at least 1.6 pounds of total solids to the gallon, weigh not less than 4.5 pounds to the gallon, and contain not less than 20% total milk solids, constituted of not less than 10% milk fat. In no case shall the content of milk solids, not fat, be less than 6%. That's one of the reasons why Wendy's calls them Frosties and so many other places use trademarkable names and don't advertise them as ice cream. As a bartender, I've unironically encountered situations like this. This one dude found out he was part of a prepaid party tab, immediately looked for the most expensive liquor, a 12-year-old scotch, and ordered it on the rocks with a splash of Gran. We ended up convincing him that he'd enjoy a vodka Gran more. Dude had no idea what scotch even was or tasted like. Being from rural TN originally, everyone who hears that asks if I love JD. No. It's like Patron or Grey Goose. All the money goes into marketing and endorsements, not in making a genuinely good liquor. But hey, when you're outside the Americas and want something vaguely like bourbon. That's pretty much your option at 90% plus of bars and clubs. I grew up in New Mexico and the food here is incredible. We still get some pain flavor stuff, but it's mostly actually very tasty spicy food. I moved to Oregon for a bit and was missing spicy food, so my husband and I ordered Drunken Noodles extra spicy. They basically emptied an entire container of red pepper flakes into our food. It was completely inedible. Edit, thanks for all the NM food love. Also, it's spelled chili. But I love you all anyway. It really is a different type. The oils from different peppers and different spices will affect you differently. So if you grew up eating a ton of cayenne pepper, you may be completely immune to the heat and it tastes delicious and you taste right through it and there's no reaction or sweating or anything. But then you get some mild Eastern food that has spices you're not used to and you are on fire, breaking a sweat. It's actually kind of cool. I make a homemade hot sauce that people love. It is basically just carrots, onions, salt, pepper, garlic, tomatoes, tomato paste, message, ghost peppers, and lime juice. It is good precisely because it has so much non-hot stuff flavor, but it does have the requisite heat. It is all about the aromatics. There's a hot sauce called Frostbite. It's clear and the ingredients are vinegar, salt, and aqua resin of capsicum. I'd never buy it, but I respect the fact that it's marketed as what it is, unflavored spice. The idea being you can kick up the spice of a dish without altering the flavor. The brilliance here isn't the rhyming or the trochaic octameter. What's superbly brilliant about a fresh sprog is their ability to create a topical, relevant, clever, and humorous poem in such a short amount of time after a comment is posted. Writing a rhyme scheme is hard. Writing with perfect meter is even harder. The difficulty of writing within these confines so quickly and cleverly is the hallmark of Sprague and it never ceases to amaze me. For me, anything that is sugar-free or sugar substitute, whatever sweetener they use, has a really awful taste to me, and no matter how much a person swears I won't be able to test the difference, I can, and it's always awful. Also, anything with red food coloring, any cake with red frosting or red velvet cake just tastes like dye to me. I thought red velvet cake was supposed to be colored with beets, but every time I've been forced to try it, it's always tasted extremely bitter because of the dye. I also hate it because I'm lactose intolerant and cream cheese frosting gives me diarrhea.